Hello, I'd like to talk about a very important topic. This will be perhaps my best video presentation ever since I engaged in social media telecasts. Yesterday, I was watching a reel about Reverend Dr. Martin Cooker, and he was delivering a speech about religion and Nigeria. As much as I want to be impressed by the sheer eloquence of that delivery, I would like to say it was all political correctness. This is some of the shame that I have to endure when our religious leaders will smile in the face of realities because they are afraid to offend certain people, and then you have an opportunity to define religion in its actual perspective in Nigeria, but for some reason tried to make the topic an intellectual exercise. That is not what I'm going to do here in this video. Now, this video might be a bit long, but please, I assure you, you will enjoy this video to the very end. So be patient and listen to the end. What is religion? For me, religion is a set of beliefs packaged in a set of perspectives to inform yourself of a reality that opposes other realities. I'll give you an example. For instance, in Christianity, we believe that Jesus Christ died and in 3 days he rose from the dead and ascended to heaven. The Muslims don't believe in that. So it's a set of beliefs that Christians have packaged to form their own perspectives about the realities of life. The question is, why do communities believe they want religion? Now, when I say religion, please, let's not restrict ourselves to just Islam and Christianity. We have our own traditional worship system. But I also want to introduce one set of religion that almost everybody in Nigeria is practicing. Let's not forget, my emphasis will be how religion destroys Africa, with particular reference to Nigeria. Now, before the advent of Christianity and Islam and the latest one, hunger and greed, into Africa, we had our own traditional worship system. Do you know that when we practiced our own traditional religion, there was no time those who worshipped the iron god goes to attack those who worship their own separate religion? In my own village, there's what we call the Igbe, where we worship our forefathers and they dance and rub white chalk on their face. So it was as if before Christianity came into Africa, we didn't have our own worship system. But man develops this way of thinking or sets of belief because of his inability to provide questions that transcends to the extremes of life. For instance, what happens after life? Is there a life after life? What forms the basis of human connectivity? What really drives the human life? What makes us live? Why are we here? What are we coming here to do? Where are we going? Now these questions are life's strangest questions that, because you didn't know where you were coming from, except the fact that you knew that one sperm interacted with an ova and formed a fetus, and eventually in 9 months gave birth to you, and you started developing senses. And because of your environment, your parents, your other factors that you have exposed yourself to, now formed who you are. Now, what drives religion in people are, one, the belief system of the parents you were brought in, the belief system of the environment you grew up, and then the belief system of your own intelligence, how much your intelligence is able to fashion the variables of life that you are able to accumulate. But basically, the way you accept religion is a function of the type of intelligence that you have. Now, let me tell you one of the basic things about religion. Let's start with Christianity. Christianity, Islam, Christianity, Islam, and Christianity and Islam are just tools that both the European world and the Arab world used to control Africa. But you will say that they too that brought this religion, they practice it. Now, the way they arranged this religion for them, for their own practice, is different from the way they package it for Africa to practice. Christianity was first introduced to black slaves in America, in Europe, such that it enabled them to walk in the farmland, believing that their existence is nothing compared to the existence promised to them after death, heaven. And in that heaven, there's a street of gold, houses, mansions of gold, everything is wonderful. That way, the slaves didn't think about their existence. They somehow believed that the life they lived in the farms and the hardship they went through are part of their natural existence. And therefore, in order to drive them, they had to think about a life after, and they sustained that by religious worship. Of course, the whites went to church, but their own form of religion enabled them on how to conquer and how to develop, how to make their society and community even bigger and better. But the slaves there didn't think about a religion that helped them to develop their community or improve themselves. It was a religion they believed that helped them to look at a life after death where there are mansions and buildings of gold. Now don't deceive yourself. When they abolished slave trade in America, it wasn't because the Americans or the white man suddenly realized his sins and felt a need to evolve humanity and say, okay, blacks, you should stop selling human beings and slave trade were abolished. No. The reason why they abolished slave trade was because they no longer needed the services of the black man, because there was the invention of machinery, there was the invention of hydraulic engine that could do work of thousands. Like we have reapers that can reap cuttings or reap potatoes or corn that 1,000 people will work in a farm. One machine will do it in an hour. So there wasn't any need. But here we have the slaves still. You can't start taking the slaves in ships and start returning them back to Africa. But these were a set of people that were already told that you don't need a religion that develops you or evolves you or improves your community. It was a religion, a set of mind that says that in my father's house are many mansions. So there wasn't any need to self-improve. Evolve a mind structure that determines how best to improve your environment. Rather, you have a mind structure that tells you that you can live a miserable life here, but after death, you live a life that you couldn't live here. Now, the white man understood this concept that worked very well with their slaves, and they also felt okay, there was a need, rather than coming to Africa to bring slaves from Africa to Europe, why not just transport the software that controls their slave over there to also control the mindset of Africa? That was where we have the missionaries coming here, telling us about how to be Christians and how to go to church and how to go to. They brought religion to us. Now let's get something here. The same system that suggests that you don't need to evolve a mind structure that invents the atomic bomb, that invents the hydraulic engine, that involves things that produces and evolve and improve our environment, rather than a mind structure that tells you that there's a better life after this miserable one that you live. It was the same software that came with the type of religion they brought to us. Now, Christianity is not the only religion that came with this structure. Islam too came with it. Don't forget that when slaves were taken from here, the males were castrated and the women alone was allowed to do all the work, and the same thing. But the Europe had already taken a greater chunk of Africa. And how best can the Arab nation who started before the European get their own share of Africa? Was rather than the Arab nation to go after physical partitioning of Africa, they took the idea of psychologically partitioning Africa. Yes, we may not be in control of this land by being your colonial masters, but we can actually be your colonial masters by telling you that there's a religion you have to follow, and it has to be total control. You have to submit totally. And in return, the same logic that guided that of the European slave trade, when they told you there's a better life after the miserable one you live here, was the same structure that guides the same type of Islam that were introduced to us. Now, don't get me wrong. Christianity and Islam, they are beautiful religion, so long as they are practiced in a way that suggests you have to develop yourself here and also develop yourself in a hereafter. So they tell you that you can have 72 virgins somewhere. You see, some of these religions, they tap on the fancy, they work on, they rely on the fantasies that the African mind can evolve. Because they know, there's a phrase I always use on this video, and I keep saying that our intelligence elasticity is so low that we cannot stretch beyond the basic needs of our feeding, of our sexual appetite, of our quarrels, of our biases. That's why we are not able to invent anything. You can see that the hoes and cutlasses we used while I was a child in primary school are the same hole and cutlasses we are still producing. We do not evolve a mind structure that our needs transcends the realities of what our needs of 50 years ago transcends our needs of 50 years today, and therefore the tools we use to facilitate our needs 50 years ago should evolve. But because our intelligence elasticity don't stretch to the realities of our common needs, we are unable to invent anything because we are constrained by religion. Now, there is another part of the world that is also coming very late to scramble for its own share of Africa, and that is China. So the question is, what religion is China bringing into Africa? Certainly he's not bringing Christianity. Certainly he's not bringing Islam. But China now has a religion that is bringing into Africa, and that is the religion of hunger and greed. Today, China is the highest donor of debts, loans. Because one thing that China realizes is that Africa, both Europe and the Arab world, had done a lot of the work for them. They have created Africans who cannot think. They have created Africans whose intelligence elasticity does not stretch beyond food, sex, fight, and destruction. Let me tell you today, if Africa were to develop bomb, the first place they will test it is not a desert. They will test it on communities they didn't like. Let's say if the Fulanis had a weapon that they can test, they will test it somewhere in the southeast. Or if the southeast developed a weapon that they will test it in one of their neighbors. So if the Yorubas, the same thing. The reason why this is because, and what even further exacerbates the problem of religion in Africa is our tribe. Because our intelligence elasticity is not able to stretch long enough to transcend some of these small biases of ethnicities, of hunger, of sex, of hatred, and all these things. We are even unable to see that tribe, ethnicity is just a means of communication. This is the reason why, because of our low intelligence elasticity, that is why we are only able to recognize people within the limits and confines of our ethnic communities. And the reason why religion helps to deflate or suppress our ability to think beyond these primordial sentiments is simply because the way they sow this religion in us, this enables us to see that there is a need for us to develop. How do you explain Nigeria with all the resources it has, with all the opportunities it has, with all the beautiful opportunities of people, of proximity to resources, of proximity to almost everything that the white man doesn't have? Yet, we cannot evolve a consciousness to use what we have to meet our basic needs, our contemporary needs. Let me tell you, when gold was discovered in Zamfara, what did we do? The first and most natural instinct of the black man is how to sell it and make immediate money to eat. Nobody, the governor of Zamfara state didn't think, okay, now that there's gold in Zamfara, let me set up a factory that makes jewelries. So rather than sell these raw materials out, we sell jewelries to those who use our jewelries. It is far more lucrative, far more revenue yielding to sell out a produced something than to sell raw material. But because we are driven by a consumption instinct, we are always thinking about sell. That's why we are selling our crude oil. That's why we are selling our gold. That's why we are, without thinking about what is going to happen in the next 10 years if we keep using this thing this way. What is going to happen in the next 50 years if we keep selling our raw materials away? Soon enough, Europe will graduate to a point where they would not need the resources of Africa, because they would have evolved in science that doesn't necessarily need all these natural resources. Perhaps they'll be flying in air. I don't. So religion is one of the basic tools that Europe, Arabia, and recently China, their own type of religion, which is hunger and greed, are using to destroy Africa. Each of these giants in the world are using this tool as a means to siphon Africa's wealth and Africa's sensibilities and Africa's intelligence without bringing ships to carry people from Africa to Europe, or from Africa to Arab, or from Africa to China. Because we have left our mind so unexercised for so many years that the only thing we think is stripes, killing, blasting people off the surface of the earth, going to community and burning churches, feeding, marrying plenty wives, giving birth to children we cannot take care of, and just creating problems for the very children you call my own kids. My history when I was young was a lot better. I attended free schools. I ate free food. I got free soap, free uniform, free textbook, free everything. That is not the same future when I was small that was bequeathed to my kids. Today, I have the same children that were the same age that I enjoyed when I was in the past, but they are not receiving the same opportunities I have because our leaders then didn't have the intelligent elasticity to think beyond their immediate need for food, pot bellies, many children they can't take care of. In fact, religion, to me, is the real problem of Africa, because religion was sown into us to disenable us from using our minds. So I beg to differ with you, Reverend Dr. Martin Cooker. I hope you will see this video and I hope you will respond. I know that your presentation at that forum was maybe an intellectual exercise, but then the truth is that the realism of the challenges of Nigeria is so enormous that we cannot afford this political correctness that we want to plead our listeners and get a few ovations. That is not what we are. The truth is that in Nigeria, Christians are dying. Under a Christian-Muslim administration, Christians died in their numbers. So if under this supposed consideration for Christians and Muslims. Christians die this much. What will be the fate of Christians in the light of a Muslim administration? The answer is best known to everybody. We might want to pretend that these fears don't exist, but this fear is there. Let's not forget that recently, even before this administration started, here in Plateau State, we lost about, I recorded 83, but in reality, I'm being told that it's even over 200 people that were killed. Why? Because certain people just believe that these people don't belong to me. Perhaps they share a different ideology of tribe, a different ideology of religion, a different ideology of belief, and a different ideology of location. And therefore, because we share these differences, they must be eliminated. And this exists because of our intelligence elasticity that has long been depleted by the type of religious belief that has been sown into us. The Europeans that brought religion to us, we didn't find them killing themselves. Arab that brought Islam to us, we didn't find them killing themselves. Chinese that brought hunger, that is exploiting our recent religion of hunger, don't go creating hunger in their own societies. When we had our own traditional religions, we didn't go killing other people that practice other religions, because our religions that we formed for ourselves met basic realities of our environment, of our natural beliefs, as we coexisted with offsprings of our own ethnicity. Therefore, we're able to form Sango and other religious beliefs, which I don't have a history that the religious practice in my village, the Igbe, went one day, started looking for other religions and start trying to impose their religion on them, or killing people that they practice other religious faith. So I like to say this because I usually don't make long videos, but I hope this one says something. My name still remains Magnus Oraka, and I say please follow this page and share this video now.